we are in great, capable hands of the amazing Mo. She's a great trainer. It's been a real privilege and a pleasure to watch her journey as she's done our neurodiversity training and become one of our great neurodiversity trainers. So I'll hand you over to Mo.
Thank you, Shezi. And right back at you, Shezi's awesome. She's taught me so much. And that's really what I want to go through with you today and share some of the things that I think every manager should know. A couple of things that I believe are very important for this type of webinar. We've only got half an hour. We're not going to change the world. But there are some very important things that I do want to cover with you right up front, which is please feel free to put anything in the chat that you want. Ask any questions. Because it's a webinar, you can't unmute and chip in, but do feel free. You can email me. Most of you have got my email address, or you can email the team at Thrive. The main thing of my job today really is to invite you to open up some new thinking. I'm really looking for you to go, okay, that's not such a big deal as I maybe thought it was. Maybe I can do more. You can opt out of discussion. Obviously, if you don't feel inspired to comment in the chat, there's nobody forcing you. And you can leave at any time. I'm hoping you don't, obviously, but you're free to do whatever works for you, because your well-being is the most important thing. And that's hopefully something we're going to get across during today's session. So I love this picture because it is very much about perspective, and how we see things and the way we look at things actually defines our experience moment to moment. And I realize that it's highly possible that I will say or suggest something that for some of you, you might not like, you might feel is uncomfortable. I'm delivering this from my perspective, and I hope that I don't cause offense. It's never my intention. But terminology is still in a sort of evolutionary process around this. And I want to make sure that you all know that it's obviously always from the best of intentions. So if I say something you don't like or feel uncomfortable, please let me know, because that's the only way I can learn and get better at doing this. So, okay, let's sort of get started. Why is it important to me? It was about a year ago, Simon Nichols, the co-founder of It's Time to Thrive, got in touch with me and said, oh, Mo, you're a trainer, you're into stuff like this. Do you want to come and learn how to be a neurodiversity trainer? And I went, oh, I do love a course. Anybody who knows me on here knows I'm a bit of a course junkie. And I was like, yes, definitely. What's neurodiversity? I hadn't realized how much I didn't know. There were things and terms that I now feel quite familiar with that a lot of people genuinely, I'd never really been exposed to. I hadn't any awareness of it. So I really wanted to share some of those kind of wake-up moments I had, because I feel that everyone should be aware of this now that I am. But the main reason, I mean, many of you know me through my training in sales and resilience and those sorts of things, but it's still all about the brain. It's our brains that define our experience, that it's our brains that interact with other brains. And to me, it's really, really important that we have a very good understanding of what is going on in the brains of the people that we want to manage and help. I've been saying it for years. No two brains are the same. And it doesn't matter whether it's two people who are identical twins and they've been brought up in the same school and they've lived the same life with the same family. They will still perceive their external world differently, and they will still experience it differently. And if you get nothing from today, just try and get that to sort of sink in as much as possible. No two brains are the same, no two humans are the same. But now we know a bit more than we did in the past. We now know that there are more brains that are wired in a sort of similar way than there are brains that are wired in a more unique way. The language has changed around this. It is continuing to evolve. This started back in 1998 when Judy Singer, who's an Australian sociologist, she coined the term neurodiversity with the intention of promoting inclusion for all brains, all neurodiversities, but in particular to increase awareness of the neurological minorities. And when you think that 15% of the global population is already diagnosed, and then you think, well, actually, if you compare the UK to somewhere like India, the chances of diagnosis in some countries are probably minuscule. It starts to wake you up to the fact that there are a lot of people who are experiencing these behavioural tendencies that show up in different ways. And that's only ever going to increase. The language that was started back in '98 was very much about neurodiverse individuals and neurotypical individuals. But there was still a suggestion there that one might be better than the other, and it sort of evolved. Then it was the neurodivergent individuals. But now really the latest thinking is it's very simply the neuromajority and neurominority. And what I love about that is it doesn't suggest that one is better than the other. There's just more of one than the other. So there are more people who will fit into the neuromajority, but we still need to be mindful of the neurominority. There isn't a case of one's better than the other. And actually, as we look at this, you might change your opinion on that and think a different way. There's obviously, for those who are still waiting for diagnosis, my daughter's included in this. She's got a waiting time of somewhere between 2 and 7 years for diagnosis. If you go private, you're talking about thousands of pounds to find out whether or not this is something that's you can put a label on. But I'm hoping during this session you'll start to realise that the labels aren't actually that useful. They're not helpful most of the time, and this is not about you being able to diagnose or observe and go, ah, you're ADHD. It is about you recognising behaviours and noticing things and being able to tweak your behaviour and make changes so that everyone can be the best that they can be in the workplace that they're in. So my daughter particularly, she just thought she was socially awkward, rubbish at relationships, easily distracted, and had terrible short-term memory. And it's only since I started learning about this that we realised that she probably is neurodiverse, and she's waiting for a diagnosis, which could take many years. But one thing that was always true, she was always exhausted at the end of the day, school days or otherwise, simply because she'd spent the whole day trying to mask what was instinctive and natural for her to try to fit in and look like everybody else. So as a manager, this is something that you want to be paying attention to, because many people won't come to you with a little piece of paper and say, you know, I'm autistic, I need you to do this. A lot of people have no conscious awareness that that's the case for them, or they're going through the process, or they simply don't want to disclose, and they don't have to. But as a manager, it's really important that you start to become the observer of behaviour, to notice when somebody's not okay and address that, again, regardless of the diagnosis or not, just because it makes sense to do it, for your people to be as comfortable as possible so that you can get the best out of them. And why wouldn't you want to do that? You want people to have all their attention available to be on work rather than it being focused on the things that have distracted them. So when we're talking about neurodiversity at Thrive, we're not talking about the levels where somebody has probably got special needs, because they will have that dealt with, they'll have that in hand, and they'll probably have someone who already helps and supports them. This is more for your general population that you will have in your teams already, and certainly be employing in the future. When my granddaughter was at school recently, she's been struggling. She won't eat lunch, and she won't eat lunch because she can't bear the lunchtime environment. It's very noisy, lots of food smells, loads of kids sort of jostling around, 200 quid in the lunchtime hall. And the teacher said, why don't we give her some ear defenders? And me and my mum went, that's going to make us stand out a bit. The teacher said, no, loads of kids wear them. So this isn't something we can ignore. Everybody who's in a role where you are managing people genuinely needs to be able to be aware of needs are changing for the workforce that's coming through. But the terms we are looking at are dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, ADHD, dyscalculia, Tourette's and dysgraphia. We don't have time in today's option or today's session to go into depth about those different neurodiversities. But what I do invite you to do a bit of research or get yourself onto one of our 1-hour webinars, because that's where we go into more depth and explain not only the challenges, but also the incredible strengths that you have with these different minds. But do some research on that. And again, obviously the 1-hour webinar is still not going into the in-depth that we do when we deliver our full workshops. But more importantly, this isn't about you learning how to diagnose. Again, this is very much about you being able to become aware. One thing that most of the neurodiversities have in common is that there is an effect at different degrees on executive function. Now, when we're talking about executive function, we're talking about working memory, flexible thinking, and inhibitory control. As a manager, even if you take from just today this piece of information, becoming aware of that can help you become more open, more able to support somebody. If you think about short-term working memory, that's the ability to hold lots of different concepts at the same time and actually do something with that and hang on to it, if you like. So somebody who joins your firm or your company may struggle when they first start because there's lots of new stuff to take on board. But actually long-term memory is usually outstanding, in which case, once they've got that new information about your organisation locked in, they may well be one of your star performers. They become subject matter experts, simply because there's that concept, that mind that can hold on to things in way more detail than otherwise might be the case. Flexible thinking is that ability to think about different things in different ways, and it's just different to the neurotypical way. And what that does is allow a different kind of thinking, which is actually a recognized thing that neurodiverse people do think differently, and that is incredibly powerful. And the final one I think is so important to be aware of executive function is inhibitory control. That's the ability to filter out something that is distracting you, to be able to remove something from your awareness. Those of you know me know I like a bit of heavy metal music. So imagine you were at a Metallica gig or a really heavy rock concert or something like that. The lights are blaring, the sound's too loud, the smells, there's perfumes, there's all sorts of other smells, body odors and what have you around you. You're being jostled and nudged and it's too hot and it's unpleasant. The neuromajority brain has the capacity to remove some of that and filter it out. And that's not the case for neurominority brains, which generally means that it's all at the same level. So put that into a work context. You're sitting at your desk, your shoes are uncomfortable, you can feel the scratchiness of your chair, you can smell someone's bacon sandwich, you can smell coffee, you've got loads of background noise, people are chatting. It's really difficult to filter that out, if for some cases possible at all. Imagine having all that going on while you're trying to focus on making that next call or dealing with that problem or writing that report. It's a lot of input. So there are things that you can do that can help to reduce that, and I'll cover that in a moment. So they just don't filter things out the same way that your neurotypical brain might. Why is it a good thing? The more I look into this, the more I realize I'm starting to use phrases like neuronormal, neuroboring, as opposed to neurounique. Simply because if you look in history at some of the world's largest organizations, Bill Gates, Richard Branson, Alan Sugar, Alan Turing, Albert Einstein, Agatha Christie, some of the world's most incredible thinkers are neurodiverse. They often have to discover a way of using language that compensates for something that isn't naturally easy for them. So they have often a wider variety of vocal or verbal skills, wider vocabulary. They can hyper-focus, this ability to really pay full attention. And it varies dramatically according to the person. But again, if a 5-year-old boy was able to stand there and tell you every detail about a tractor, you'd think, well, he's really into tractors. But when, as an adult, he can tell you every finite, minute detail about his particular chosen subjects, that's somebody you want to have on your team if it's something that's adding value to what you do. Different ways of thinking, excellent long-term memory and retention, problem solving and innovation, really sometimes very fast-paced thinking, so can move around from different things very quickly. So this is something that in some organizations, they are actively recruiting for more diverse thinkers, more diverse brains. So it can be a very positive thing. We all have tendencies, you might say. You'll often hear someone say, oh yeah, well, we're all on the spectrum. not really the case. We all have times when we experience those challenges that can face someone who's in the neuromajority. And those challenges can be exhaustion, loss of focus. You know, I have days where you don't spell so well and go, oh, I'm being dyslexic. It's not the same. And the reason it's not the same is that for a neurodiverse brain, it is constant. There is no day off. There's no, oh, I feel better today. It is there, and it's there all the time. You can't switch it off. And therefore you have to deal with that level of input, if you like, that higher level of consistent intrusion, if you like, into your thinking space. And therefore it's necessary to find ways that would work for you. So can I just ask you just to pop something in the chat, because has anybody here also thought that, oh yes, we're all on the spectrum? Have you heard somebody say that? Maybe you've thought that yes, okay, I have days where I feel, you know, like I can't concentrate. Yeah, heard it, Vicky, absolutely. It's a phrase that it's quite often just dropped out there. Yeah, Nicholas, I've lots of times. So again, we've got so many of you, and it's easy to think that way. The key thing is, if, and again, as a manager, you want to become better at this, you don't need a diagnosis to be considered a member of the neurominority. You don't need a piece of paper. You simply have behaviours that are consistent that somebody can observe. And if those consistently observable behaviours can be noticed, then you are perfectly within your rights to go and ask for support, some reasonable adjustments. You're actually covered by the, forgot my name of the Act. Shezi, please put it in, Equality Act. Thank you. And yeah, I love that Shezi's just put on there, just because you live in a garage, it doesn't mean you're a car. You know, just the environment that you're in doesn't define who you are, but it can change what you're able to do. Dot, you've got, oh, your son's ADHD. Yeah. Reacts differently and struggles and often gets overwhelmed. And it's that overwhelm. It's so easy to go, oh yeah, everybody gets overwhelmed. But what's different is that inability to step away from it, switch it off. And there are things that you can do to support your team to allow it to be possible. Just imagine you on your worst day, heightened significantly, and think about, well, what would be useful? Not necessarily what would be useful for me, because again, everyone who experiences these differences has different needs. Two people who have the same neurodiversity, two autistic or two ADHD individuals will have different specific needs. So we have to, as managers, get very, very good at observing behavior, what is showing up there. Because the instinctive thing is quite often to simply make a difference. Think, well, if I do that, that'll make a difference for them. Recognizing that everybody's different anyway, quite often what the changes you make will make it better for everyone. The suggestion I love from this next image is great, which is, we often go, oh, fairness, we need to give everybody the same thing. Let's give everybody the same thing and then we're being fair. But actually the outcome of that first image is most definitely not fair. The outcome of that second image is fair, which is that now we've made it possible by making different reasonable adjustments to the different individuals. Now the outcome is fair. And that's really the way to start thinking about this, is that what you want is a fair level playing field for everyone to be able to excel and be their best and really reach their potential. And that means being aware of the fact that actually that one there needs something different to this one here. You can get help and advice on these. Reasonable adjustments don't have to be huge expenses or investments. It can be really simple things. And here's another question for you to pop in the chat. Anybody got any any ideas on what might be reasonable adjustments that you can make quite easily in the workspace, in your workspace? I'm guessing it might be an office or a retail environment, or it could be manufacturing. But what are the little differences that you might already make that you know of? Perhaps because I'm guessing some of you are not completely new to this. There you go, Jenny, lovely comment. Yeah, offering some flexibility, home working for some people, that environment in the workspace is too much. Vicky, absolutely, quieter offices. Now, if you're in a really busy environment, that might not be possible, but maybe you could make a quieter workplace. Perhaps you could make a space where people can just go and chill for a minute and have a breather. Do not disturb times. I love that one. Just moments where you, and actually that, again, that's great for everybody, because for that period of 45 minutes or an hour and a half, everyone gets to concentrate without the distractions. Yeah, start and leave times to avoid so busy periods. That reduces the level of stress before you even get to work, which is great, Ali. Extra time to complete tasks. Yeah, because for some people it takes them a bit longer. Not a problem, as long as the job gets done the way you need it to be done. Extra breaks, definitely, Nicola, because sometimes you just need to be okay to step away from the input. Take a breather. And again, as adults, most of the people who are dealing with neurodiversity will have probably already figured out ways to deal with their extreme levels of discomfort. Jay, you're saying here you've got a team member who's waiting for a diagnosis. And one simple thing is just making sure she has an agenda in advance. I love that. Yeah, that's come up on previous groups. Actually having an agenda allows you to plan, allows you to think and not get stressed. And again, all we're trying to do is remove the things that make some people struggle with, and again, neurodiversity and neuromajority alike, struggle with, whoa, can't think, too much going on, need some space. So avoiding surprises, absolutely. So having that heads up that things are going on. Visually and communication wise, this is one of the biggest challenges. Using a slight hue on your slides, as we've done. White backgrounds can be a bit much. Perhaps if you have the option to print on paper that's not white, the reports and things that people need to read, just so that it's not quite so in your face as you're looking at something. Ask people, if there's any outward signs of overwhelm that you might notice, what you can do to help them. Ashley, that is absolutely the purpose and the aim of this webinar. Just simply to be able to recognize and observe behavior and see this person isn't okay. What do you need? How can I help? Now, obviously, some people might not know that they are annoyed by the ticking clock until you take the ticking clock away. But what you'll probably find is more than half the office will go, oh, isn't it better in here? No, it's so much quieter. Yeah, purple overlay for paperwork, some great stuff coming through in these different chats. And the information is out there. Again, obviously, we'd love you to come on one of our training events so that we can actually share more of this with you. But what I'm seeing is some great input. And as Shizzy says, recycled paper is great, it's cheap, it's less bright, and it's better for the planet. So let's just finish, because it's amazing how 30 minutes flies by when you're into a subject that you're interested in. So from a management point of view, I would say become the producer of the music, if you like. There isn't a one size fits all, but then that goes for all humans. It's recognise that it's all at different levels. And again, for somebody who is struggling, all those levels might be the same. And it's about you being able to make those simple adjustments to make it easier and more comfortable for the person, so they can really outshine and just be the best at themselves. So get to know your team so you notice when they're not okay. Become aware, learn more about this so you can identify and you can spot things that you might have otherwise missed. Look for opportunities to free up attention so they're not thinking about that ticking clock. They're actually thinking about the thing you need them to think about. Spot particular talents. I mean, outside of work, you might have somebody who's an absolute super genius on a particular subject. Maybe that's something that you can bring into the workspace. Actively recruit for different minds, different brains, people who think differently for you to make it easy for people to excel. I love this image. This his name escapes me at the moment. He's a Paralympic swimmer. If you think about this, in his environment, in his wheelchair, not in the water, you might consider him to be less able. But actually put him in the water, he's outstanding and better than most of us. And this is really, as a manager, what I'd like you to start to think about. How can you change the environment? What tweaks, what alterations? And there's been some great ideas already in this chat. Can you make so that that person can really be at their best? They can focus on the task in hand rather than the awful distractions that just take up that headspace. Leadership, David Pendleton, who's somebody I'm quite interested in at the moment, professor in leadership at Henley, he talks a lot about knowing what you're not good at and recruiting to fill that space and opening up to the possibilities. And again, we don't have time today, but on the 1 hour webinar, we go into much more detail about specific strengths in these different neurodiversities. So the options are all there and available for you to learn more about this, and it's out there. We'll do what we can to support you. Please do get in touch. We love to help where we can. Thrive will always put on these webinars every month, and you can have a look at the old ones on the YouTube channel, which is at It's in Time to Thrive. There's blogs and newsletters. Get in touch with me or Shezi or Simon or any of the team here, and find out more. Lovely. We will get in touch with you about the webinars that we run and see what we can do to help, and have a look on the YouTube channel or email me, because there is so much more to learn. And the more you learn, the better you can be as a manager. Because if you ignore the differences, you're going to be blind to the talents. And when you think about how we're evolving, even Darwin spotted this. It's those who learn to collaborate and improvise most effectively are the ones who have prevailed. So please do get in touch. We would love to help you as much as we can. Our aim is to help one person at a time, but if we can do 100 at a time, even better. So thank you so much for joining us. Please take a screenshot of that, because our next webinar is from Simon, who is going to be talking about preparing for Christmas. Because at Thrive, we also do mental health training as well as neurodiversity training.